fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. This is going to be a fun episode. Got my main man, John Skinner. What's up, John?
How you doing?
Good to see you. I've been
actually, everything behind me is a mess because I'm actually packing for Florida. In fact, I would have been down there, but that storm got in the way. And I guess you must have been experiencing that pretty recently. So
still am. And if for those of you watching this, I have a door on my right, behind my right shoulder, and there's, I'd say, about a 60% chance that one of three kids will be busting through and breaking into the lock at some point. So the kids are out of school. Yeah, a nasty storm, and it's been crazy. I'm going to stop. So those of you guys watching, I'm sharing John's striper course. I'm going to stop sharing just so you can see him. I feel like I'm watching one of your videos on my other screen about one jig and strip caught 43 bass on Rocky Beach. I was like, I kind of want to see John. There we go. Now I can see your, and you got all kinds of lures at the top. I guess. Oh,
you can't even imagine. I hate to do this, but I'm going to turn this screen and see if I can. This is only going. You're only looking at one wall. I in front of me. It's off to the side. It's really out of control. But and hopefully I won't disconnect you here. But
that's awesome. That is awesome.
What it looks like.
All right, so we'll go back to the screen here, because today we're going to be talking all about stripers, striped bass. We did the course, or you did the course with us. It's the other way around. And the thing took off, and I realized, wow, we never actually did a podcast or anything about it. I know you talk about it usually in the beginning of all your videos. And I spent a little time in there this morning because Luke and I are the first two people to get to watch John's course, which is awesome. And I went back in just to see what some of the comments. So below every single video, so you can see here, they're broken down by modules. If you guys are listening in your car or working out, I'm showing the Surfcasting for Striper course, and it's broken down by modules. Each module has multiple videos. And this first one, it's like 40 something minutes, right? The sand, 40 minutes on the dot.
Right. And that's one of the advantages of, that's something you don't do on YouTube. You don't put up something that long and that detailed, comprehensive. So that's why I opened with that, was because, when I realized I was going to do the course, and I said, all right, now I can go out there and really pick something apart. And one of the most common questions I get is, hey, I go to the beach, where do I start? And for a beginning surfcaster, they go to a sand beach, and to them, it all looks the same. They see, water and waves and miles of beach, and it looks the same to them. But to an experienced striper surfcaster, you see all the little intricacies of the shoreline. And so that's what I wanted to start with. And I had a beautiful situation here where I've got nobody on the beach. I've got miles and miles of beach. And just ride with the truck and video the structure, but then get out and fish the structure. And this just worked out so beautifully. And I thought it was a great start to the course.
Yeah, I finished this video and I was like, I'm done. Like, meaning I got all the value I needed. It would be like, how much would you pay to sit in the truck next to John to scope out the spots, and then obviously you go fishing. But you talk through. I don't know if you guys listening can hear it on my audio or not, but he literally drives along the beach and points out, hey, here's going to be the best spots. And I love the very first spot was kind of a bust, if you recall. I know it's been a little while. It was kind of a bust, and then you moved over like 100 feet. All of a sudden, boom, you found him. You're like, oh, here's why that happened, and here's why so many people would have stayed in that same spot and probably gotten skunked because they were just 100 and 120 feet off from where all the feeding fish were.
One of the best questions I ever got in a seminar was a guy asked me. He said, "How long do you stay in a spot before you move?" And I said, well, probably 2 casts, definitely not more than 3 casts. And that was not the answer he expected. He expected me to say half an hour or something. But when you're in a situation, now, of course, in a different environment, there would be a different answer. But in this kind of fishing, if you don't get hit within the first couple of casts, you move, especially when you have varied beach structure. And that was a perfect example. I get out of the truck, I look at it, and there's nothing showing. There's no birds. There's no fish busting. Everything is hidden. And you start where you think. And if that doesn't work, well, you start making little adjustments, and lo and behold, you find them.
So let's start right there then. So you're on a stretch of beach. It all looks the same, right? To most eyes, it's like, oh, it just looks like one long beach. We always talk about the 3 B's, for Florida. We're talking about birds and bait, you mentioned, and we talk about boils, actually literally seeing fish out there boiling, or, hitting bait on the top. You didn't see any of that stuff. So
no. That's why I'm shaking my head a little bit. I'm going, no. That's not.
So why did you stop there? Like what makes you say, hey, this is going to be a good spot?
Most striped bass that I catch, there are no visual clues like the birds and the bait and the ball. No, it's not. So it's completely structure, because these are structure-oriented fish. And the first thing you're looking for, even at a distance, is whitewater, and also it's the shape of the shoreline. You're looking for points. You're looking for that whitewater, and that's where I go driving along. And that's how this worked out really well. Is when you're driving along the beach at 20, 25 miles an hour, you can cover miles of shoreline, and you get to see all of the differences between some stretches. Hey, there were stretches of miles where I don't even slow down, because I'm looking at that and it's boring. And not only is it boring, what you'll see is where it would be good, where you have some waves breaking on a bar. Well, you can't reach the bar. I mean, if the bar is twice your casting distance, well, that's not going to do you any good. So you just keep riding. But then you get areas where, and hopefully we're all seeing the same thing here. I mean, there's a beautiful point structure. Look at all of that white water. You're seeing that, right? We're looking at breaking up point. Yeah, I mean, that's just gorgeous. And so if I'm looking at this, well, what's the best spot? I don't know. Get out. You got to get out and fish it. If this is the point I'm thinking of, yeah, it was the rougher corner off to the left. Whereas, to the right, that looks good, because you can imagine waves breaking across the shallows, disorienting bait, and then the stripers sitting to the right-hand side there where it gets deeper. And I think there were some there, but I think it was better actually in the rougher water on the other side. The fish were right in the turbulence. So you have to get out, you have to move across and fish it.
I noticed too that you switched up your bucktail, the jig, the weight pretty quickly. Talk through that. Like, the one question you said was great, that, hey, how long do you stay in a spot? The other one is, how often are you changing your weights?
Well, it's going to depend on how much distance do I need. That's important. Like in this spot here, I can picture fish being in pretty tight. The water is not too deep. I'm going to start off with like 3/4 of an ounce. But then if I start moving, even I think to the right of this, that bar is going to angle out and there's going to be deeper water. But I have to reach that bar, and there is deeper water, so I can afford to go up to a slightly heavier bucktail. I know on the other side of this point, that water was rough. And yeah, you needed to get out there. And certainly then I went up to heavier. But you know what? We're talking about weights, but we're really only talking about a range of 3/4 of an ounce being the lightest jig and 1.5 ounces being the heaviest jig. We're not talking, 1, 2, 3, 4 ounces or anything like that. We're talking about relatively subtle weight changes.
Yeah, and I love this. I'm not playing it purposely, because I believe everyone's going to be able to hear you talking. Yeah, and John, you can't hear this, but I can. I believe the listeners can. But I thought this was so cool. It's like literally spending 45 minutes in each spot with you and seeing exactly how you fish it, and most importantly, why you pick this spot, why you have this lure, why you're retrieving it a certain way, what you're trying to feel on the bottom, what you're trying to avoid. I thought that was awesome. I also appreciate this about you. So for those of you who don't know, John creates all of this, and this is all unique stuff that you can't find on YouTube. He builds the course out. We kind of help, design it a little bit, but all the content's his. And then we help out with some of the sales page. And I had written down, just because, it's the marketing. You and I talked offline about, some of this YouTube stuff where you don't want to be like clickbaity, but at the same point, you don't want to have just some boring headline that no one ever even reads, because you got good content behind it to back it up. And so I put something about blitzing fish, and you called me and you're like, Joe, take it off. Like that anyone could catch a striper when they're blitzing, and it's easy. He's like, I'm talking about the average day when it's tough out there. I'm trying to get people to have consistent bites all the time, not just when they find some crazy. So you told me to strike it, and we took it out. So I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, in fact, I have to say, yes, it's exciting to get it on a blitz. Like where I live out on the North Fork of Long Island in the fall, sometimes you go up to the bluff, you go to a beach, and hey, the birds are there and the fish are busting, and oh yeah, you go have some fun. In fact, one of the videos I put up recently, it wasn't a real grinding blitz, but actually there was blitz action in that video, but that was the only video for the year that I put up that way. Yeah, it's fun, but it's not as satisfying as going to a situation like this with no visible cues from the fish or the birds or anything like that, and figuring it out and catching extremely well by just reading the water.
Yep, there's one right there. Yeah, you caught a few right in this little spot here. Let's see if I can shrink this down. The other one, though, this was the second video in the course. This is another 20 minutes of just map reading, spot selection on different satellite maps. And you can see here below, everyone has questions, and John answers every single question. I forgot to read this one on the first video. Actually, I guess there's an intro video with another 40-something questions, but it says, John, I'm a longtime subscriber. I was skeptical that there would be much more information than I've gotten from the fact that I've seen all your videos and read all your books several times each. I can already see from the first few videos that this course truly does offer something unique. Very good work. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, but is there any adjustments you would make to utilize this information in New Jersey? And of course, you respond there. And I think you agree with me here. The books are powerful. Anything in text, right? There's a reason that so many people read magazines and go to forums and in Facebook groups, but there's just something unique about actually seeing someone fish a real spot. Oh, I told you. What did I tell you, John?
There we go.
2%. So if you guys are watching, what do you got? You got something on you? Oh, I got it. Kids are home from school. You say hi to Mr. John? Oh, he's up here.
Hello.
He's up here. Jackson likes to catch. He says he likes to catch bass, but we're talking about Florida bass, not largemouth. All right, buddy. Never, before this it was COVID, and now it's hurricane.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there'll probably be some more COVID on the backside of the hurricane too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so back to this. We talked about the power of books, the power of written material. And then when you tie that in, and this guy, Michael, here's a great example, tying that in with seeing someone do it on the water. That's so powerful. And I'm not talking about like, 9-minute YouTube video where you just see the highlights.
Right.
I'm talking about like the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I've often said that you can't express in words what you can show. I mean, when you can show somebody, and then you can't do what's done in this course on YouTube videos. YouTube videos are these, the whole thing is kind of disorganized. I mean, yeah, you have a trip, and yeah, you can definitely learn great stuff from the YouTube videos. However, pulling it all together and making it comprehensive and having it flow, and you just, you can't. So I laugh and I get annoyed when people say, oh, it's going to just be the same stuff on YouTube. hey, you know what? I reuse some of the footage I put up on YouTube because it's great footage. So I will use some of that to demonstrate things. But even if I had never recorded extra stuff for the course, which I recorded a lot of extra stuff, this still would be way better than having to go through 200 YouTube videos to pull the different things out, just to reorganize the bits of the YouTube videos really adds a lot to the course. But yeah, now I'm able to just, show stuff that, there's another thing, and it has to do with spot burning. And I feel like, look, I've got a lot of good video that I simply will not put on YouTube because there's backgrounds. I often think about the other guy. It's not so much me. Look, if I burn my own spot, oh well, Yep. But I worry about the innocent guy who just fishes an area, and then I capture that on video and put it on YouTube and burn it. So that for that reason alone, I won't do it. But in some of these places, I've been able to put up some stuff into the course that I simply would never have done on YouTube. And certainly one of the last, I don't know, I'm not sure whether it's the last. Yes,
I think it's in the bonus, right? We put
it. Yeah. Well, that was something. Yeah, that's a special thing there.
Yeah, we can't show that one.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless, of course, you're a subscriber to this course.
Right. Yeah, that's that's a case where I've had people tell me they've spent hours trying to figure out where that was and everything. And the answer is nobody else was on it. And I knew that because I was the only one who fished it for years. And then I moved, and I've got other spots closer to me, so I don't fish it anymore. So, I didn't flat out burn it, but there are some visual clues in there where people familiar with the area might be able to figure it out. But that segment is about how I found that spot using the kayak, the troll tube and worm in tight to the beach. And it's very convincing, but certainly something in a million, no matter how much anybody paid me, I would never put that up on YouTube.
Yep. And even in the course, it's like that gentleman's question about, New Jersey and about fishing other types of areas. That's what it's all about. This course is about trying to find the best types of spots in your area to recreate it, not about, hey, here's a GPS spot.
That's right. But that bonus content shows how.
Yes, it was great.
An example of how I found that spot, because I know that spot, I did a lot of videos there, a lot of big bass on plugs. And, there was a lot of people would have liked to have found that, but it shows how I found it and how you can apply that to find things in other places, because it's a technique of doing that. And then, it's how you find them. And the thing is about that kind of a place, you will never, ever see fish busting. For whatever reason, these fish are hunkered down on structure. They don't show. You'll walk by it. You'll never think about it. But, there's ways to find these areas where the fish hold.
And they were there. Yeah, those are the two first videos I saw, because you'd sent me the bonus one. And I was like, I got to watch this. The one, if you guys you can't see this, it's the one way to find shore honey holes in shore, and then the sand beaches. Awesome. So out of all these types of spots, we got sand beaches, rocky shorelines, bays, creeks, and inlets. What do you recommend people start with if someone's listening and they're not a complete beginner maybe, but just someone who's just not as consistent as they want? Is there one that's just been easier than others? Is it going to depend on where they are? Depend on the time of year? I don't know, because I'm not a striper expert. What do you recommend here for these different types?
It depends. It depends on where they are. And so I can tell you, like where I live, it's almost inconvenient to fish sand beaches. Just because I'm on the North Fork of Long Island, I have to somehow get over to the South Shore, which is, take two ferries, or I have to drive around the water in the middle. On the other hand, I can walk down the end of my street and be on a rocky shoreline. So the first thing I would say to people is start close to home. And this is something I've always preached, is that you're better off learning a mediocre spot really, really well than scattering your efforts among these top shelf places that you read about in the magazines and everything else. Because if it takes you too much time to get there, you can't put a sustained effort on it. You can't learn it really closely. So, I always say, start close to where you are and work your way out. So if you live in a place that's, like this, well, then that's, what I would be focusing on first. Actually, a course like this, I don't remember how many hours long it is. Frankly, I would just take it, a course like this, I would just go start to finish and work it all the way through. Because one of the coolest things about striper fishing is that they are in so many different environments. I mean, you've got everything from the quietest back bays to the roughest surf, and then everything in between, the rocky shorelines, the inlets. And in a lot of the striper coast, you are relatively close to all of these things. I mean, yeah, it's more convenient for me to fish where this is, but yeah, in less than an hour, I can be up on the ocean sand beaches, or I could be in an inlet, and certainly I can be in the back bays as quickly as I can be on this rocky shoreline. So those different environments across many parts of the striper coast are available to everyone.
Keep fast forwarding here to, okay, there it is. It's like, where's the striper? It looks like you're still using a bucktail here, even in all this structure with all these rocks.
Yes. And that's something that on the latest YouTube video that I posted from the beach, I wanted to make really clear is that, yeah, you fish bucktails in the heaviest, nastiest, rocky areas. And I know I didn't lose any bucktails this year. I don't recall whether I lost any last year. And you see what I'm fishing in. But the whole thing is you swim, you glide that bucktail above the structure, and you use a bucktail that's made to do that, something that's a little bit bulkier, that is suited for swimming above the structure, as opposed to something like a fluke bucktail. And when we're fluke fishing, hey, we want that thing to have minimal drag, get to the bottom with the lightest, thinnest line. But with striper fishing, no, if you're casting into very rocky areas like this, and I'm only hitting maybe 10 feet of water, that bucktail has to glide and swim at a reasonable retrieve speed, slow to moderate retrieve, and be able to keep it out of the rocks. But it's just deadly. It's absolutely.
Another one here, back to back. And this is one of your bucktails, I assume, right? One of the
sure. And I always have a disclaimer that, hey, there's plenty of good bucktails out there on the market. These came from. I was picky. I tied my own for many years, and the difference in mine were that they had a little more deer hair, but they also had the hackle feathers tied to the hook shank. So if you look at a typical bucktail without the feathers, you kind of have a hollow spot in the middle because you tie the hair to the collar of the jig, but then it's kind of hollow in the middle where the hook shank is. Well, I fill that out with hackle feathers, and that's the way I always made my bucktails. I pretty much didn't use anybody else's, very rarely. So then I had mentioned to S&S Bucktails, I said to the guy Stanley who runs this, hey, can't you tie them this way? And he's like, well, yeah. And then one thing led to another. And, so now, they're produced with my name on them. And so I definitely prefer them, but there's plenty of good bucktails out there on the market that you'll catch with.
You're a modest guy. I say you got to have the John Skinners, but
yeah,
that's cool. I love this. Another one.
Yeah, and these are schoolies. This isn't showing big bass. There are other parts of the course, certainly in the surface plugging and all that, show quality stripers.
All right, so I'm going to go to bays because you mentioned sometime. Yeah, look how calm that is compared to what you were just in.
Right. And, you had mentioned different times of the year. Well, our seasonal progression up here is that we start in the early spring, which is roughly like the beginning of May, end of April, in these back bay areas. And you want to get the areas, they're fairly shallow bays, and they warm up first from nice sunny days. And so that's where we start the season. And I start in the bays, and I probably fish those end of April and May, into most of June, but then I'm out of the bays after that for stripers and into the Sound, the ocean.
And when does the season end for you? I know there's some that maybe extended a little bit longer.
So there's fishing is still going on. I know even yesterday, looking off the end of the street, I see schools of fish that they're not on the beach though. They tend to push off a little bit farther, and so the boats can get at them, but they're not so much on the beach. But yeah, the fishing is still possible for another couple of weeks yet.
What was interesting is, we get to see these courses, and you would think that the or all of it, really, all of these course sales would happen like in the peak of the season. And a lot of it happens in the wintertime. Like two of our best months are December and January, and I think a lot of people are just, they're kind of at home. The weather's kind of crummy. And even getting into February, it's been really interesting. That's been 5 years running. A lot of people are, because they want to get ready, right? They're getting geared up. They're trying to just at least live vicariously through other fishermen as much as they can. I thought that was really fascinating.
Okay, well, the best thing you can do to be a productive angler is to utilize that downtime to learn, and whether it's through something like this or books or whatever it is, you've got and here it's terrible. We've got an off season that's over 5 months long. Even if you fish stripers till the end of December, you still have then December, January, February, March, pretty much April. I mean, you have pretty much a solid 5 months, which is why I'm now wintering down in Florida, because that's a big chunk of your life not to be fishing, and so to be able to utilize that time. And one of the things that has always been good about the winters here is that we have the fishing shows. Those are tremendous opportunities for people to learn, because you've got a lot of seminars, and then you've got all of the different kinds of gear. And I've got to tell you, as somebody who does a lot of seminars, you don't want to do a crap job at that. So, you do your best, and you put out a lot of information in those. And but now there's COVID. I don't know what the situation is in Florida, but over here they canceled. Pretty much all the shows got canceled last year. They're already canceling the shows for this year. Mm. So I would be totally shocked if there were any seminars, any big shows up in the Northeast this winter. So unfortunately, that's going to be a big educational loss for anglers, not having those shows.
Well, the good news, you can go to saltstrong.com/Skinner and see your 2 courses with us. And you will, if you watch every video from start to finish, maybe I'm going on a limb here, but I mean, I believe you'll know more than 90-something% of all Weekend Warrior anglers out there, in terms of, you got the one for fluke, and then you have this Surfcasting for stripers. I mean, it is packed.
It is. And, I just mentioned that. So when you do seminars, you don't want to do a crap job. When you do this, you don't want to do a crap job either. So you really, and the same thing goes with writing books, you really put everything you can into it. When you're banging out a YouTube video or 2 a week, I'm not saying you wing it, but, it's a little less, you're a little more rushed. Whereas something like this is a project, and I like big projects like this because you can really go over it, you can refine it, and you can put out a very high quality product.
And when you're charging money and have a 365-day money back guarantee, it's got to be good.
Oh. yeah, absolutely. You know what? I don't do it because I'm afraid people are going to want their money back. Yeah. I would be more concerned that people wouldn't be satisfied. But fortunately, the money back guarantee, very, very few people. And I'm thinking about, when was the last time I even saw a refund request? It just, it's not happening. But it's there. You know what? If you're not sure, hey, you can check it out. If you don't like it, you can get your money back. That's awesome.
There was. I think there was one. I'll call him a jackwagon because that is this the guy that gets in there. I know all this stuff, right? Yeah, right. But they're there, and he got all his money back. I love the part too that it's interactive, and there's many times where someone will ask a question that they're like, man, that's worth going out and actually adding to the course. So the beauty, and that's another reason we don't do DVDs. We get that question, hey, why don't you guys send DVDs in the mail? Well, DVDs, they're static, right? You can't change them, you can't alter them, and of course, if you scratch them or crack them or have kids like me break them, they're kind of useless. Whereas this, it's online, you can watch it anywhere, and it's interactive and it updates. And you get to see all the other people's questions. I mean, just on this one video alone on inlets, you got 19 questions here, and John replying to all of them. I think that part is really, really cool. I want to move on to lures and tactics. Clearly, in a lot of these videos, we've just been kind of skimming through. You're using a bucktail. I know that's your confidence lure. It's your I assume it's the one you lead with in most cases.
No, actually,
not.
It depends on the situation. It's really two things. It's pencil poppers and bucktails those are really, that's the two. Yeah.
And walk me through when to use each one. I got a 12-minute video on Papas.
So these are the thing about pencil poppers is I think about them as being almost like fish finders for surf casters, and the reason is that you can get tremendous casting distance with them, but they also tend, look at this, it's flat glass calm. You saw the rough ocean surf, but these conditions here
can you see how far out the lure looks like it's a mile away?
Yeah, no, so you're able to cover a lot of water with a pencil, but the thing is pencil poppers tend to pull up fish that aren't actively feeding. And here's the great thing. You don't need the fish to eat your plug to know that a fish is there, because what's going to happen is even if they don't grab it, there's a good chance they're going to come up and just take a look, and they're going to leave a boil behind the lure. So if you're trying to search out areas to find fish, the pencil popper, you've got that visual reaction when a fish comes up behind the lure, whether it hits it or not. Just a boil, that tells me, hey, I see that boil. I'm as excited as if I hooked the fish because, hey, I know they're there, so I know that, there's fish in that area. So it's a very good search tool.
It's a cool image right there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big fish. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the ones. Yeah. Right. So, you know what? I'm not reaching that fish with a bucktail, just, where it's hitting. And, quite frankly, in this calm water, not much current, very clear water, a fish like this, yeah, you might get them on a bucktail. But the thing is with a pencil popper is that it tears up the surface of the water. It's hard for the fish to get a good read on. They can't quite see exactly what that is because it's thrashing back and forth. It looks like a big injured meal, but they can't see it clearly because it's ripping up the top of the water, and they hit it. Yeah, it's that simple.
Love it. We still got another 9 minutes or so to go. Oh, so now you're using it on the
right.
surf.
And right. So I keep saying pencil poppers, and it's to the point that about 90% of the time, yeah, if I'm using a popper, it's a pencil popper. But there are many other good ones on the market as well. These Super Strike little necks are, if I'm not using a pencil, I'm probably using a Super Strike little neck because they are also very good plugs.
Cool. So you got the minnow plugs, you mentioned soft plastics. But it sounds like if you just want to simplify, you got bucktails and poppers. If you
here's where it gets a little more complicated is if you're night fishing, then those poppers go pretty much out the window. Now, there's always somebody who says, oh, but I've caught fish on poppers at night. Fine. But that's not a main night lure. The night lures, that's the minnow plugs, the darters, the bottles, the needles. Those are really more the night lures. Yeah, a little bit of Florida footage there because
I was like, that looks like some mangrove.
Yeah, what are those mangroves doing up here? I was demonstrating lure action, especially with the minnow plugs, and trying to show what the what the action should look like on the lures. But yeah, those. So it's going to depend. And then when you get into the minnows, there's all different kinds. And it's funny. So you look at that one. First of all, look how terrible. Hey, that particular plug is a killer. Look at the finish. There's no finish.
Zero. Yeah.
Yeah. It had a finish at one time. But so that's a bomber. And if you look at a bomber compared to a Daiwa Salt Pro, those lures look extremely similar, very much the same. And I can remember the first time I saw a Daiwa Salt Pro, I was like, I already got bombers. What do I need these for? Well, those plugs are quite different. The Salt Pro casts farther. It handles rougher water. The bomber is a better shallow lure. So, and that's what the course covers, that contrasting the different kinds of minnow lures, because they all have their different places.
This is so cool. You got a bunch of them there. All right. And then when we talked about a little bit, but let's talk about tides, current, have them flow. What are your
it's going to
we got a 7 without saying all 18 minutes that you cover in here.
Yeah. So, all right. So I can see this is an inlet shot. And so let's talk about currents, especially in areas with significant current. What and here's an inlet, and you can see that water is ripping. What you find is a lot of the bites, it depends on the location. Some areas are going to produce well on the fastest water. A lot of the inlets where you've got really fast moving water, it's going to be 90 minutes either side of high tide, because if you're approaching, you really, and I don't mean to say high tide, let's say slack water. It's really not so much of a focus on tides as it is current and current speed. And you're thinking about when is slack current. So if I'm thinking about high slack water, the window that I want to fish in this particular spot is 90 minutes prior to high slack, and then 90 minutes on the other side of the first hour and a half of the outgoing current. And actually, I'm saying high as an example. Low is good too. So it's really 90 minutes either side of a high or low slack. Rule of thumb, that's a good time to be fishing, because what that is a period of time where the current speed is changing. And you could be fishing for hours in the middle of the tide, nothing happening. And then all of a sudden that water starts slowing down, and it's like somebody flipped a light switch, fish start hitting. And when I fish these inlets, I never want to miss fishing it through a slack period, catching those times when the current speed is changing.
No, that's critical. We did that recently in Jupiter, which is a popular inlet here for the big snook. And we fished, it was probably 2 hours, and it was just brutal. And we were, using jigs, and we're just like, I'm talking nothing. And then all of a sudden it looked like a light switch. And we were all three of us, boom, boom, boom. It was just like, it was nuts. Same lures, nothing else had changed, except it was probably right at that 90-minute mark. It had slowed down just enough where the fish were, because the fish are kind of lazy. Like, they don't want to work that hard for it when the thing's just ripping. And we knew they were down there, and all of a sudden it was on.
Well, it's not only it's biology. They can't, you look at this water, it's screaming. They cannot afford to expend more energy getting their prey than they get from their prey.
Right.
You need to take advantage of these times where that water slows down. And something I like about the snook is they are kind of similar to stripers in a lot of ways with the currents and everything. So when I went down to Florida, I picked up the snook and the redfish really easily, because it was quite a bit like striper fish.
Yeah. So when are you coming back down to Florida? Pretty soon, huh?
Right. I'm leaving the day after tomorrow. So I expect to be down there pretty soon. Got a long drive. Going to be dragging a 30-year-old Maverick flats boat.
Nice. You got it, huh?
Yeah, going to repower that thing down there. And
Very cool.
In the meantime, I'll have my kayak. So looking forward to I miss the redfish and the snook. They're a lot of fun.
They are here, my friend. And, because we've had that closure on the Gulf Coast for quite some time, this has been a really, really good year. And at least on the Gulf side in St. Pete and even down in Placida, a little bit closer to where you are, that Port Charlotte area, it's been good. So,
well, that's good. And it'll be fun because I've never been down there in the fall. So I have no idea what happens down there in the fall. So.
Oh, it's fun. Big baits and big fish. So everyone, please, if you haven't already, go to saltstrong.com/Skinner. You can see John's 2 different courses there. And we talked offline about a potential new course. I don't know if you want to do a teaser there real quick, but a third course in kind of in the works here.
Sure. I'll so we talked about bucktails, and they catch so many species of fish.
Yes.
And what I would like to do is a bucktail mastery course that ties in the Florida stuff, because I went down to Florida, and sure, the snook and the reds and the tarpon, they hit the bucktails too. And then I can also work in some things like, this is a northern thing, but for blackfish jigging, porgy jigging, something that I didn't cover in the bucktail book. But again, comparing the bucktail book to the course, there'll be many things I can do with the course that, simply can't be done in print. And I'll be able to work in the Florida stuff. And I think that will turn out to be a really good course.
I think it'll be huge, my friend. So everyone, stay tuned for that. Leave us a comment if you want to see this bucktail course, bucktail mastery, we'll probably call it, or anything else that you have questions on with Surfcasting for Stripers. Let us know. And of course, if you're in the course, that's found at saltstrong.com/Skinner. Then you can ask questions right there. It's all interactive, and John always gets back with you. Sometimes it might take a week or so, especially when you're traveling and moving all your stuff down to Florida, but he always gets back. And it is a phenomenal course, and everyone in there seems to absolutely love it. So we appreciate you, my friend, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks, John.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul, it was pain.